Hi everyone, it's Darren from Camino Ultra. I wanted to do a race briefing video for the Lea Valley 50k 2022. There is an email coming out to all runners shortly, but I wanted to sort of chat through that information email and show a few things and talk about a few things to try to improve people's experience on the day and make sure that everyone's safe on the day, which is the most important thing for us as organisers. So Lea Valley 50k is on Saturday the 18th of June. It's the second edition of this race, we're pleased to say. It took us, should probably be maybe the fourth or fifth edition by now, but it took Dave and I a few years to get this race off the ground after spending lots of miles training on this course. And then COVID came along and obviously disturbed everything for a couple of years, but it's the second edition. We're delighted that it's going ahead again this year. It's taken a lot of work to get this off the ground, even though it's a small event. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing runners out at our event and on this course, and we love the course, and we hope you all do as well. Last year's race, it was competitive actually. It was won by Chris Holmes of London Heathside. I think Chris ran, I think it was 3:12, set obviously a known sort of course record. And then the ladies' race was won by Christina Kushar of London Frontrunners in a very fast time as well. There were 125 runners completed last year's race, and a lot of them were first-time ultramarathon runners, which is something that we love. We love seeing people taking on new challenges, and that's kind of the reason that we're trying to put stuff like this on, is that we love seeing people challenge themselves and get into the sport of ultra running. It's a sport that we love, and one of the main things we love about it is seeing the delight that it can bring to people. And that's why we're doing it really. So this year we have 110 runners roughly. Entries are still open. We've got capacity for probably another 30. So yeah, I mean, we want everyone to just come and have a good time on these beautiful trails, and that's what we're going to tell you about here. So what happens before the race? So you've obviously all entered on our partner website, Race Director. It's captured all your details and your emergency contact details and things like that. If you could just take a minute or two just to double check your race director profiles, make sure that things like your emergency contact numbers are up to date, and crucially make sure that your postal address is up to date. The reason for that is that it's kind of a COVID hangover really, is that your race number will be posted out to you. So it's obviously important that we've got the correct address for that, and get as many race numbers as possible into the runner's hands before the race. That saves quite a lot of potential sort of queuing up on race morning, which is a good thing for everybody really. Yeah, if for some reason your number doesn't arrive successfully, don't worry about it. We'll have spares at the starts, and we can allocate a new number. But hopefully, using this mechanism, we'll capture something like 95% of runners, and we won't have a problem with numbers. If you could arrive with the number pinned to your front and not covered over by a race vest or anything like that. A lot of people like to pin it on their shorts, which is fine, or use some kind of number belt or something. That's also fine. Okay, so that's numbers. Mandatory kit. A lot of ultramarathons have mandatory kit lists, or at least they should have mandatory kit lists. especially ones that go up into mountains. At this race, we're obviously, it's a flat course, there isn't any elevation, we're very, very close to civilization at all times. So from a safety point of view, we're not mandating safety gear. So we're not mandating things like carrying survival bags or anything like that. But what we do ask is that every runner comes to the race properly prepared. So you need to be looking at the weather in advance of the race, and you need to be prepared for any conditions that might arrive on race day. And of course, given the time of year that this race is, that's primarily one of two things. It may be very, very rainy, in which case you obviously need to have a waterproof and a windproof jacket with you. It might be very, very hot, in which case you're going to need to have some kind of sun protection. So think about the kit that you need to bring. There's a list in the email of recommended kit. So have a look at that list and think about adapting your kit accordingly, and make sure that you're looking after yourself on race day. One of the absolutely essential things you're going to have is a water bottle or a cup or both. The race is cupless to try to lessen the environmental impact of the race. So practically speaking, I mean, most of you experienced ultra runners will know this, but if it's your first time in a trail ultra, you likely want to have some kind of race vest, something like that you obviously put on, and you must have your own drinking vessels. So some kind of soft flask like this, where you can open it up and fill it up at the aid stations, or a collapsible cup, which looks like that, and collapses down into something quite small, I think. But you get the idea. We're not going to be dishing out hundreds of plastic cups at this race, so you must supply your own drinking vessel. Okay, so the start of the race it's the same location as last year. The start, the facilities at the start are better. So it's still at the Gosling Sports Park. So it's the Gosling Sports Park in Welwyn Garden City. That's at Stamborough Road, Welwyn Garden City. AL86XE if you're coming by sat nav in a car. There's parking at the Gosling Sports Centre. If you're coming by train, which is an option that I hope as many of you as possible are using, it's a really, really easy train ride out of London, out of King's Cross or Finsbury Park. It's about a walk of about 1 kilometre from the town centre. The start facilities will be open from 8 a.m. and we have access to, so the cafe in the Gosling Sports Park is going to open a bit early, at 8, and there are also toilet facilities in the sports centre for runners to use. And the bag drop is just outside the main sports centre entrance at the outdoor change area. If you just look out for Camino flags and look out for me and our staff, we'll be wearing sort of yellow, the classic yellow stewarding type vests. You'll find us there. Give us your bag, and that'll be transported down to the finish for you. So one of the most crucial things to note really is that we've moved the start time back slightly. So it's later than advertised. It's 1 hour later than advertised, so it's going to be at 9 o'clock. And that is basically to just, it's partly because of the facilities at the sports centre opening for us at 8. But it's just a bit more civilised. It gives you a bit more travel time and a bit more race preparation time. So 9 o'clock is the race start. There'll be a briefing at about 8:45, not as long as this one, you'll be glad to know. But we'll go through, if there's been any course changes or anything, we'll go through that at 8:45 on race day. The start itself, so ultimately with this race, we really want to have a mass start with everyone heading off at the same time. That's what we're trying to get to eventually with this race, but we're not quite there yet in terms of the sort of infrastructure that we have at the start area. And we are going to operate for this edition of the race. We're going to maintain a rolling start. So the start line will be open from 9 a.m. The race results and your time will be recorded off of chip time. So there's a chip on the back of your number, and when you cross the start line, that chip will record your start time, and there'll be a timing post obviously at the end, which will record your finished chip time, and that's how the results will be done. We may have a timing post at the halfway mark as well, but that's to be decided at the moment. So yeah, start from 9 a.m. We're asking for faster runners to go off first. So if you're going to be running faster than about 4 hours 15 minutes, you can consider yourself one of the faster runners. Look to be starting at around 9, just shortly after 9. Sub 5 hours, a little bit after that, so sort of 5 past 9 to 9:15. And if you're going to be above 5 hours, if you start towards the back of the field, from around 9:15, 9:20, it doesn't take long for everybody to process across the start line. Realistically, you just need to leave a few meters or 20 seconds gap between runners or between small groups of runners, and everyone will get away probably pretty quickly by the latest 9:30. Please don't take that as a license to have an extra hour in bed and turn up at 9:15 or 9:20, because if everybody who's on site has started by then, we'll be tearing the start line down as soon as we can. So you need to be there ready to start at 9 a.m. absolute latest, and ideally before buying a coffee at the cafe in the sports park, and just taking your time a little bit. Okay, let's talk through the course. So it's a 50 kilometer ultra marathon. It is primarily a trail ultra. There are some very, very small road sections, but the vast majority of this course is on trail, and the vast majority of it is on the Lea Valley path. So the course itself, from a sort of broad point of view, starts in Welwyn. It goes through residential streets in Welwyn for about 3 or 4 kilometres, and essentially it takes you out the other side of Welwyn onto a trail called the Coal Green Way. And the Coal Green Way is one of the old railway line closures. I think it was a beach enclosure back in the 60s or something. It's been turned into a great multi-use trail that goes from Welwyn to Hartford. So you'd be on that for that's roughly it's about 7 or 8 kilometres of really beautiful trails. So that's great. We're big fans of that one. You get to Hartford. There is a very, very big road crossing in Hartford. I'll talk more about road crossings in a bit. But across the main road at Hartford, through the Hartford Castle Gardens, and across the town centre. And if you find yourself heading anywhere towards Hartford North, you don't want to be doing that. You need to go across the town centre, and you are going to find the aid station 1 at Hartford Canoe Club, which is about the 11k mark. Now from Hartford's, you are then on the River Lea, and you stay on the River Lea path for the next 38 kilometres. And that's all the way down to the Olympic Park. Basically, from a course point of view, if you're not either heading through Welwyn on the Coal Green Way, through Hartford, or you're not on the River Lee path after Hartford, then something's gone pear-shaped, and you need to you need to sort it out. So yeah, the route itself is going to be marked. So you're looking for fairly classic red and white marking tape, which unfortunately I don't have any with me today, so I can't show you that, but it's the usual sort of marking tape that's used in races, and any major turn points will be marked with signs that look like this, and these will obviously be pointing in the right kind of direction. You need to look out for these signs pretty carefully. There are only really 3 or 4 turns on the course where you could conceivably go wrong. Early on in Welland, you need to have your wits about you in Welland, because the course goes through some residential streets, and there are essentially there's 2 turns that are right angles. So there's one in the first couple of K, I think it's about 1.5 kilometers, a sharp right turn. That'll be heavily marked with these. You need to make sure you see that turn and don't go flying past it. And not far after that, there's a sharp left turn which goes through a hedge cutting essentially. It's going to pop you out. It's actually that part of the course is actually one of the national cycle routes. So if you're also following the cycle route signs at that point. So just have your wits about you in Welland for the first 3K, and you use that first section as a bit of a warm up. Really, there's no need to go absolutely hell for leather through Welland. Just make sure you've got the right route, and you'll be fine. The last thing about the route and the course is that there's a GPX file that's accurate on our website. We'll have a link in the email. Try your very best if you can to get that GPX file and stick it on your watch if you have that facility on your watch, or if not on an app on your phone. If things do go wrong, you need to be able to navigate back on course, and the GPX file is going to sort that out for you. So yeah, please do take a little bit of time to just study the course, get hold of the GPX, and make sure you know what you're doing with nav. It will be really well marked. Sometimes markers get moved or things go wrong, so just make sure that you know what you're doing with the course. Okay, right, in terms of the actual path itself, all of the paths they're all mixed use paths. So they're not closed for the race. We don't have any special right of way, just because we're running a race on that course. There will be other people around. There'll be cyclists, there'll be dog walkers, there'll be pedestrians, and you may even find, especially on the Colgreen Way, you might find some horses. So please, just be considerate and respectful, and cautious. Personally, I'm terrified of horses, so I kind of creep around them, give them a really wide berth. But just make sure you're aware of what's going on around you. Don't go knocking anybody over just because you're trying to shave a few seconds off your time or whatever. It's really important for things like permits and permissions from the Canal and River Trust, and things like our insurance, that our runners are respectful of other path users. Road crossings, I've mentioned this before. To be honest, it's one of the things that keeps me awake at night as a race director, is somebody hurting themselves on a road crossing. Please take your time, make sure the road is clear before you cross. It's not worth a few seconds off your race time to try to get across a road crossing more quickly. That applies in Welland, and especially in Hartford. There's a dual carriageway that you've got to get across. There is a pedestrian crossing with a green man there. Please take your time there and get across safely. Okay, aid stations. So it's a 50-kilometer race and it has 3 aid stations. We will have some stuff for you at the start if you want to fill up your bottles and grab a snack at the start. The aid stations on the race course are at kilometre 11. That's Hartford, at the Canoe Club in Hartford, so just over the other side of the town centre. 25 kilometres, which is obviously halfway, that's at the Crown Pub in Broxbourne. And then down at a lock, Ponders End Lock, down at 38 kilometres is aid station 3. At each of those aid stations, there'll be water containers. They're big, sort of 15-litre containers. There'll be a couple of tables at each station. They'll each have 2 containers on them. So one will just be plain water, and the other one will be an electrolyte, like Precision Hydration or Mountain Fuel. So obviously, refill your bottles at those. There will be other drinks as well. Primarily, when we were putting on our races last year, an inordinate number of runners needed Coca-Cola, especially at the third aid station. So that was one of our big learnings. We will have more. We'll have more Coke and soft drinks. There's obviously going to be lots of ultra food at those aid stations, bananas, other fruit, gels and bars, cakes and biscuits, crisps, trail mix, all that usual kind of stuff. What I would say about this race is you need to be thinking, I think, because it's 50k, in some people's heads that might be, it's obviously the first ultra distance, and in some people may be thinking that it's relatively short. That may be the case for some runners, but there can still be really quite long stretches on this course where you'll be on your own for quite a while, and you really don't want to be running out of energy. You might, if you calculate badly with your nutrition, then you could find yourself with a struggle to get to the next aid station. So what I recommend you do is really have a think about each one, and even if you don't feel like you need something, maybe just take a drink and take your time to take a couple of snacks, eat something and take something with you, and make sure you've got enough to get you to the next station. Yes, okay, lecture over on that front. I don't want anybody collapsing from lack of sugar on our race. So just take your time a little bit and make sure you got that bit sorted. Okay, what else? Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have about 110, 120 runners out there. There'll be lots of Camino people, marshals, helpers out there on the day, but we would like to request that you as runners, and you'll all do this naturally anyway because of the type of people you are, but look out for your fellow runners. If you're between aid stations and you come across somebody who's struggling, we would greatly appreciate if you take the time to check on them, ask them if there's anything that they need, maybe help them out a little bit. And if you are worried about someone, then get in touch with us. We kind of need all the help we can get in terms of if somebody's in difficulty. We need to know about it. We need to be able to get to them. We do have first aiders out around the course. So yeah, help us on that front. My number, the race director's number, is in the comms email that's coming out. Make sure you've got that stored in your phone, and then let us know if you spot any problems on course. Dropping out, hopefully this won't happen to anyone, but if you do have to drop out of the race because you're injured or it's too difficult or whatever reason, really, try to do that at an aid station if you can. If you have to drop out between aid stations, please let us know by getting in touch on the number that's in the race briefing email. We will have sweep runners coming down the course on the cut-off pace. So if you find yourself being caught up by them, let them know that you're struggling. If you want to continue with them, you absolutely can. But yeah, you use that as your sort of cut-off marker. The cut-off itself is pretty generous. We allow 9 hours to do the 50k. So hopefully that's enough time for everybody to get down the course. We really want it to be very inclusive, so there aren't any harsh cut-offs really. If you are struggling to get that kind of time, we'll assess it on race day, and we'll either help you down to the finish if you can continue, or we'll help you out on race day. The finish itself is down at the Olympic Park in London, obviously. So the finish will be staffed by Paula and her team of helpers. And if you look out for the finish arch down at the Olympic Park, it's just after a bridge that we call Graffiti Bridge. You'll see why we call it Graffiti Bridge when you run under it. You will finish just after that. There will be a big cheering squad cheering you home, hopefully with some of your own friends and family there. And we have the use of the St Columba barge, which is basically a floating church barge on the canal, and you can pick up your bag, pick up your medal and your finish bag and your change of clothes, your drop bag, your change of clothes from Paula and the barge crew, and then there's plenty of space to chill out down at Here East. At the finish, so there's plenty of bars and restaurants and stuff to meet friends and family and enjoy your success. Okay, I think that's it. The other thing that keeps me awake at night with this kind of race is people falling in the canal. Don't fall in the canal, because that would be not very good. Just be careful from that point of view. It has happened on other races. There was a runner on the Thames Path last year who very unfortunately fell in. He was fine, but that's a scary experience, so just be really careful next to the canal path. I think that's it. If there's anything that anybody's worried about or has questions on, drop us an email or on info@caminoultra.com, or ask us at the start of the race. Looking forward to seeing you all on the 18th of June. I hope your training has been good, and I'm sure you're all going to do great on race day. Alright, take it easy. Bye.